When Mickey Hart stood on stage at Bob Weir's memorial on Saturday, January 17th, 2026, he said something that made 25,000 Deadheads at San Francisco's Civic Center Plaza go silent. The songs of our lives are yours now. If it was not for you, there would be no us. Media mass. It was an acknowledgement that the last chapter was closing. Jerry Garcia died in 1995, ending the original Grateful Dead. Phil Lesh died in October 2024. And now Bob Weir, the rhythm guitarist who kept the music alive through Dead and Company and half a dozen other incarnations, was gone too. For the thousands who gathered in San Francisco that day, this wasn't just a memorial. It was, as one longtime fan put it, the end of an era. This is the story of that day. The tears, the tributes, the music, and what it means when the last members of a legendary band finally leave us. Background context: 0 Hart Fork 5 North 3 Fort 5. Bob Weir died on January 10, 2026 at age 78 after battling cancer and ultimately succumbing to underlying lung issues. He had been diagnosed in July 2025, just weeks before Dead and Company played 3 shows at Golden Gate Park to celebrate the Grateful Dead's 60th anniversary. Those would be his final performances. But to understand what his death means, you need to understand the Grateful Dead's relationship with San Francisco. Since Bob Weir, a co-founder of the Grateful Dead, died at the age of 78 last week, Deadheads in San Francisco have been drawn closer, bonded by shared loss and gratitude. They've gathered in the thousands on streets of the Haight, the meadows of Golden Gate Park, and Civic Center at Weir's memorial on Saturday, not only to honor the San Francisco native who for so many years was a beacon of the city's culture, but also to dance to the tunes that brought them all together in the first place. Media mass. The Grateful Dead played over 320 concerts in San Francisco, across more than 24 venues. They were the house band for Ken Kesey's Acid Tests. They lived communally on Ashbury Street in the Haight-Ashbury during the Summer of Love. They played free concerts in Golden Gate Park. They weren't just from San Francisco. They were San Francisco, embodying the city's values of creativity, community, and counterculture. When Jerry Garcia died in 1995, the original Grateful Dead disbanded, but Bob Weir refused to let the music die. He formed the other ones, later known as the Dead. He fronted Rat Dog for over a decade. He created Bobby Weir and Wolf Brothers, and in 2015, he joined with Mickey Hart, Bill Kreutzmann, and a then 38-year-old pop rock guitarist named John Mayer to form Dead and Company. That partnership, Bob Weir and John Mayer, seemed unlikely at first. Mayer was known for radio hits like Your Body is a Wonderland and A Tabloid Love Life. But he proved to be a serious student of the Dead's music, and Dead and Company became one of the highest-grossing touring acts in America, introducing the Grateful Dead's improvisational spirit to a new generation. Then Phil Lesh died in October 2024, and then just 3 months later, Bob Weir followed. For Michael DeLeon, though, these gatherings haven't relieved the grief, not only for Weir but for the band itself. He recalls that when Jerry Garcia passed away in 1995, it marked the end of the original band. But now, after the passing of Phil Lesh in 2024 and then Weir, DeLeon is ready to admit this feels like something final, the end of an era. Media mass, the Memorial Day, 3:45 to 7:30. Saturday, January 17, 2026, exactly 1 week after Bob Weir's death, dawned clear in San Francisco. The memorial was scheduled for 12:45 p.m. at Civic Center Plaza, and it was free and open to the public. It began with a 3-block procession down Market Street, one of San Francisco's main arteries. Fighting back tears on Saturday afternoon at the Civic Center, moments before Weir's memorial began, DeLeon said he's spent the last week binging YouTube videos of the band's concerts, searching for the spark that once carried him through decades of shows in muddy fields and festival grounds. Media mass? It's gone, he said. That's what I feel more than anything. Media mass. This sentiment, the sense of something irreplaceable being lost, permeated the entire gathering. An estimated 25,000 people filled Civic Center Plaza. They wore tie-dye. They carried roses, red roses, which had become a symbol of mourning for Bob, with spontaneous memorials covered in them appearing all week at the old Grateful Dead house on Ashbury Street and in Golden Gate Park. The memorial itself featured an extraordinary lineup of speakers. Mickey Hart, the Grateful Dead drummer, who is now one of the few surviving original members, spoke about Bob's vision for the music. John Mayer, who had spent nearly a decade playing alongside Weir, delivered what many considered the most emotional speech. Joan Baez, the folk legend, who had known Bob since the 1960s, shared memories. Mayor Daniel Lurie represented the city. Nancy Pelosi spoke about democracy and voting. And most importantly, Bob's wife Natasha and his daughters Chloe and Monet spoke about the man behind the music. Mickey Hart's tribute, 7:30, that's 9 an. When Mickey Hart, a drummer for the band and its most well-known surviving member, took the stage at the memorial, it was clear he felt the same way, even if he clung to hope about how the music would live on long past its makers through the fans. Media mass. Bob liked to talk about where the music would be in 300 years, said Hart. After watching it all build for 60 years, he could envision the depth of our impact hundreds of years down the line. Media mass. That statement, thinking about the music's legacy 300 years in the future, captures something essential about Bob Weir's ambition. He wasn't just making music for the moment. He was building something that would outlast him, that would continue to bring people together for generations he would never meet. The songs of our lives are yours now, he added. If it was not for you, there would be no us. Be sure of that. Media mass. This was Mickey Hart acknowledging that the Grateful Dead's legacy now rests with the fans, the Deadheads who have kept the music alive through trading tapes, organizing tribute bands, passing songs down to their children, and gathering in moments like this to remember and celebrate. John Mayer's eulogy, 9/11/30s. But if Mickey Hart's speech was about the long view, 300 years into the future, John Mayer's eulogy was intensely personal and immediate. The most emotional speech of the afternoon came from John Mayer, a founding member when Dead & Company formed in 2015, who toured around the country with Weir before playing their final shows as part of a 3-day festival at Golden Gate Park in August to ring in the original band's 60th anniversary. Media mass Mayer said that he and Weir were born on the same day, 30 years apart, and noted how the two learned to trust each other's intuitions despite their generational gap. Media mass born October 16th, Weir in 1947, Mayer in 1977. They shared a birthday, and, it turned out, a deep musical chemistry. He said that the entire time he played with the band, now speaking entirely in the past tense, he was both a performer and a fan. Every time he wrapped up a show, he remarked, he too would need a long rest to re-energize, and he too would be counting down the days until the next one. Media mass. This dual identity, performer and fan, was what made Mayer's partnership with Weir so special. Mayer never tried to be Jerry Garcia. He never tried to replace anyone. He simply brought his own voice to the music while honoring its traditions, and Bob Weir trusted him enough to hand over the lead guitar parts that Garcia once played. Right now, it's easy to feel as if time is speeding up and taking so much from us all, Mayer said. But I would remind you, as I have tried to remind myself this past week, just how many nights we all live so fully in each second, hanging on every word of Bobby's, following the music around twists and turns through forests and over majestic vistas. Media mass. This was Mayer asking everyone to focus not on what's been lost, but on what they experienced. All those nights at concerts, all those magical moments when the improvisations took unexpected turns, all those times when the boundary between performer and audience dissolved and everyone was just together in the music. Other tributes, 11:30 Act 13 back. The memorial included tributes from an eclectic mix of voices, each offering a different perspective on Bob Weir's life and legacy. Some of the other tributes were virtual, like those sent in from 49ers players Nick Bosa and George Kittle. Others, like Mayor Daniel Lurie's, were short and sweet. Weir's youngest daughter led the crowd in 108 seconds of silence. Media mass Joan Baez recalled that Weir was the only other person she knew who danced barefoot on stage. Media mass. This small detail, Bob Weir dancing barefoot, captures something essential about who he was. Free-spirited, connected to the earth, refusing to let convention dictate how he performed. Nancy Pelosi did her best to tie Weir's efforts to her own, claiming, that music, like democracy, is not fixed. It is something we make together, she said. The world is a better place because of Bobby Weir. Media mass. The memorial culminated in a sing-along of Ripple, the Grateful Dead's beloved folk ballad from the American Beauty album. John Mayer picked up an acoustic guitar, and thousands of voices joined together to sing the song's famous opening lines about reaching out your hand in the darkness. The fans' stories, their antinpat fai. But perhaps the most powerful part of the memorial wasn't what happened on stage. It was the stories shared by the thousands of fans who gathered, each with their own history with the Dead's music. For De Leon, like many others, the long, strange trip started as a teenager. He was a freshman at Washington High School when he skipped class to see the Grateful Dead and Trip Acid for the first time. Over the course of the next 5 decades, he would listen to the band high and drunk in his army barracks, and, once he got out of the military, see them in concert as many as 20 times a year. Media mass. I keep hoping I'll run into some friends I made back in the day, De Leon said, looking out into the crowd of Deadheads. It's not so much about the band as it is about the family. Media mass. This is what the Grateful Dead created. Not just music, but family. Not just concerts, but community. People met at Dead shows and stayed friends for decades. They traveled together, camped together, raised children together, all connected by their shared love of the music. The sentiment held true for Hideo Soda, a 70-year-old who discovered the band after moving to America from Japan, where he called himself a misfit for not committing to the traditional life path of working for a corporation after college. In the Grateful Dead, he found something he'd been missing, a place where he could belong. Media mass. I found my community, a place I could fit into, he recalled. I wasn't a misfit anymore. Media mass. This is the real legacy of Bob Weir and the Grateful Dead. They created space for misfits, for people who didn't fit into conventional society, for anyone who felt like they were searching for something more. The music became the gathering point for a tribe of outsiders who found each other and created their own world. Analysis 15-16-30. So what does it mean that Bob Weir is gone? What does it mean when we say this is the end of an era? The Grateful Dead as a band officially ended in 1995 when Jerry Garcia died. But the music never stopped. Through the other ones, The Dead, Further, and Dead and Company, the songs kept being played. Bob Weir kept touring into his late 70s. Mickey Hart kept drumming. Bill Kreutzmann kept the beat. New musicians like John Mayer and Oteil Burbridge joined and brought their own voices to the tradition. But with Bob Weir's death, something fundamental has shifted. The last of the Dead's vocalists is gone. The last of the songwriters who created those anthems, Sugar Magnolia, Truckin', Playing in the Band, has passed. The direct connection to the 1960s counterculture, to the Summer of Love, to the original vision of what the Grateful Dead could be, has been severed. Mickey Hart is still alive. Bill Kreutzmann is still alive. But neither of them are frontmen. Neither of them can carry a band the way Bob Weir did for the last 30 years. This doesn't mean the music will die. Tribute bands will keep playing. The recordings will endure. New generations will discover the Dead through their parents and grandparents. Mickey Hart was right when he said the songs belong to the fans now, but there's something irreplaceable about seeing the actual people who created the music perform it. There's a magic in watching Bob Weir play Playing in the Band that no tribute act can fully capture, no matter how talented they are. And that magic is now gone. The bigger legacy, 1630 and 1730. But let's not focus only on what's been lost. Let's remember what Bob Weir actually accomplished. He helped create one of the most influential bands in American music history. The Grateful Dead didn't just make music. They pioneered a business model, built a devoted multi-generational following, and showed that a band could maintain artistic integrity while achieving commercial success. He kept that music alive for 30 years after Jerry Garcia's death, refusing to let the Dead's legacy become just a museum piece. Through Dead and Company alone, he introduced millions of younger fans to the music. He was an activist for environmental causes, animal rights, and social justice. He served as a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. He used his platform to advocate for causes he believed in. He was a husband to Natasha and a father to Monet and Chloe. He built a family while maintaining one of the most demanding touring schedules in music. And most importantly, he created community. The thousands who gathered at his memorial weren't just fans, they were family, connected by decades of shared experiences at concerts, festivals, and parking lot parties. Media mass. Conclusion, 1730 at 18, Weir. On Saturday, January 17, 2026, 25,000 people gathered in San Francisco to say goodbye to Bob Weir. They sang Ripple together. They shared stories, they cried, they celebrated. Mickey Hart told them, "The songs of our lives are yours now." Media Mass John Mayer reminded them of just how many nights we all live so fully in each second, hanging on every word of Bobby's, following the music around twists and turns through forests and over majestic vistas. Media Mass Joan Baez remembered Bob dancing barefoot on stage. Media Mass and thousands of Deadheads, from teenagers discovering the music for the first time to 70-year-olds who'd been following the band since the 1960s, stood together, bonded by shared loss and shared gratitude. Is this the end of an era? Yes. The last of the Grateful Dead's original vocalists and songwriters is gone. The direct connection to the Summer of Love has been severed. The magic of seeing Bob Weir perform live will never happen again. But is this the end of the music? No. The songs belong to the fans now. They'll be played at tribute concerts and family gatherings. They'll be discovered by new generations. They'll continue to bring misfits together and create community for people searching for a place to belong. Bob Weir talked about where the music would be in 300 years. He could envision its impact centuries down the line. That vision didn't die with him. It lives on in every Deadhead who passes a song to their children, in every tribute band that keeps the music alive, in every spontaneous gathering where people sing Ripple together. The era has ended, but the long, strange trip continues. Fare thee well, Bobby. The music plays on,